Chapter 3. Echoes on the Dice. By the time they reached the city, the stars were fading. Dawn painted a pale gray line along the horizon as the walls of Gray Harbor rose out of the mist. Torches guttered in their iron brackets above the gate. The watchman on duty blinked blearily down at the four figures approaching. A dwarf in battered armor, a tiefling with singed horns, a human cleric still radiating a faint glow, and a half-elf ranger whose cloak smelled faintly of oil and exhaust from a world no one here had ever heard of. "Halt!" a guard called, voice cracking just enough to ruin the effect. "State your Toren Blackshield, Kael Thorn, Seren Veilborn, Lyra Emberwind." Toren rumbled. "Not breaking stride. Returning from job. Tower exploded. Lich double exploded. You can either open the gate or explain to my back how the paperwork went wrong." The guard peered closer, then grinned. "Toren, you're alive? Some of us had a bet." "On me dying?" Toren asked. "On you coming back with more scars than last time," the guard said cheerfully, pulling the lever. The gate chains rattled. "I won, by the way." "That's deeply concerning," Seren muttered as they passed under the archway. Gray Harbor at first light was half asleep. Shop shutters still closed, the market square mostly empty. Only a few early rising bakers and sweepers moving about. The air smelled of yesterday's smoke and fresh bread and the river's cold breath. Kael's shoulders loosened a little with each familiar sound. A cat darted down an alley. Somewhere, a smith's hammer rang in an early strike. A hungover bard snored across a tavern's table, drooling onto his own loot. "That one," Kael said, pointing. "That's how you know you're back. We should send Spider-Man here just to see his face." "Spider-Man," Toren echoed, shaking his head. "Ridiculous name. Should be Web Warrior, Silk Knight, something with gravitas." "He named himself when he was 15, Lyra said. "Be generous." They turned on the Guild Street, the cobblestones worn by the boots of 1,000 adventurers over 1,000 arguments about loot distribution. The Gilded Griffin Inn loomed ahead, its sign creaking in the morning breeze. A griffin rendered in slightly awkward proportions, clutching a tankard in one claw. Kael's stomach growled. "I'm voting we report in after breakfast," he said. "Possibly during breakfast. Maybe breakfast is the report." Seren stopped so abruptly, he nearly ran into her. "You three go," she said. "I need to go to the temple first." Her hand was wrapped so tightly around her holy symbol that her knuckles were right. Kael sobered. "You can come find us later," he said gently. "We'll save you some bread. Maybe, if Toren falls asleep." "I do not fall asleep in my food," Toren said. Lyra snorted. Seren managed a small smile. "You absolutely do," she said. "And I absolutely will come find you." She squeezed his forearm briefly, then turned and headed down Sunspire Lane toward the Temple District, golden disk already catching the first rays of dawn. Lyra watched her go, tail flicking. "We should let her have that time," she said, softer than usual. "Agreed," Kael said. "Come on, dwarf. If I don't get a beer and something involving eggs soon, I'll start regretting saving 2 entire universes." They pushed through the griffin's heavy door into warm, stale air. Inside, the common room was in its own version of dawn. Tables shoved back, chairs half stacked, a barmaid sweeping up last night's debris, while the innkeeper, Garrick, argued with the cook about the proper amount of onion in a breakfast stew. Garrick looked up mid-argument, saw them, and his eyes nearly popped out of his head. "By Peller's flaming armpit," he exclaimed. "You lot look like hell chewed you up and decided you were too gristly." "Love you too, Garrick," Kael said, dropping into a chair. 4 breakfasts? No, 5. One in case this one passes out. He jerked a thumb at Toren, who was already half dozing against the back of his chair, eyes closed, hand still resting on his axe. Lyra slid into a seat, stretching her legs under the table with a wince. "And tea," she added. "Strong enough to qualify as a controlled substance." The barmaid hurried off. Garrett came around the bar, wiping his hands on his apron. "There were rumors," he said, "about the tower. Blue fire in the sky, screaming wind. A few folks said they saw, I don't know, shapes, like shadows of somewhere else. Then nothing. I thought," he trailed off, looking not at them but through them, the way someone did after attending one too many funerals. "No tower," Kael said quietly. "We destroyed it. And the thing inside." "You did?" Derek blinked. "Then it's finished? For good?" Lyra and Kael traded a glance. "For good here," Lyra said, "and for good where he tried to run. He's done. Truly." Toren's eyes open. "If he comes back again," he added, "I'll retire just so I can unretire and hit him harder." Garrick laughed, a little too loudly, the sound edged with relief. "Well," he said, clapping his hands once. "Oh. Well, we never know where you find you, but, well, we find you. Then there's only one thing to do. First, breakfast is on the house. If anyone's earned it, it's you. I've always liked you," Kael said, "especially your economic policies." He didn't mention the other world, or the red and blue hero, or the wizard with the annoyed eyebrows. Not yet. Some things you didn't just drop on an ant before you'd finished making your eggs. The Temple of the Sun Radiant had always felt like stepping into a hymn. White stone columns rose along the nave, carved with scenes of light chasing away shadow. The air smelled of beeswax and incense. Sunlight poured through stained glass, painting the floor in gold and red and blue. Seren had grown up in these light-drenched halls. She had argued doctrine in the echoing West Cloister, cleaned wax from the altar steps as a novice, knelt in those front pews the first time she'd been chosen to carry the sun's fire beyond the city worlds. Today, walking up the aisle felt like returning after years away, even though she had left only days ago. A few early worshippers knelt in scattered pews. An acolyte swept the far corner, humming. At the altar, High Priestess Lyra arranged candles with efficient grace, lips moving in silent prayer. Seren stopped halfway up the aisle, suddenly unsure. What if she was wrong? What if the connection she'd felt on that rooftop had been wishful thinking, adrenaline and exhaustion, painting patterns where there were none? What if her god truly had no reach beyond their sky? Lyra looked up. "Seren," she said, and her tired face lit. "You're back. We heard. Rumors? Are you hurt? Do you need?" Her gaze sharpened. "You're different." Seren blinked. "Different how?" Lyra stepped closer, studying her the way Strange had, but with eyes tuned to a different spectrum. "The light around you," the High Priestess murmured. "It's stretched, as if it was pulled through something too small for it. There are colors in it I don't recognize." Serene's throat tightened. "High Priestess," she whispered. Do you still feel his presence? The radiant ones?" Lyra's expression softened. "Yes, child. More strongly than ever. We began a vigil the night you left. Something shifted. Distant but profound. We did not know what it meant." Seren closed her eyes. Let her awareness sink into the quiet center of herself, the place she went in prayer. Warmth met her there, not faint, not struggling, but clear. A rising sun's light, washing away the last cold tatters of night. Tears slid down her cheeks. "I thought I'd lost him," she whispered. "When we crossed, I called, and there was nothing. Lyra's hands cupped her face. Distance is not abandonment, the older woman said gently. You know this. Did you go somewhere without light? Seren laughed, wetly. No. There was a different kind of light, harsh, from the hands of mortals. She talked then. Not about everything, not yet. She told of the ritual gone wrong, the tower's collapse, the street of metal wagons, the metal suit they'd fought. Of strange in his sanctum, of the cracks in reality, of the Lich in another body upon a glass tower. Lyra listened without interruption. It was not the first time someone had come to this temple with impossible stories. It was the first time the impossible made the high priestess's eyes flicker with something like recognition. When you describe their magic, she said slowly, it reminds me of the old texts. Before we were a temple, when we were only a circle of light watchers, they spoke of other lights, other skies. Some thought them metaphors, some thought them warnings. Seren swallowed. Do you think I did wrong, reaching out there, pulling his light into another world? Lyra smiled then, a small, fierce curve of her mouth that reminded Seren why she had become a cleric in the first place. Child, the high priestess said, if the Radiant One did not wish to shine there, nothing you did could have forced him. If his light touched that world, it is because he chose to answer you. You did not drag him, you carried him. That is what we are, Seren sagged, a weight she'd been holding since the tower lot lifting from her shoulders. I think I want to rest here, she murmured. Just for a while. Then rest, Lyra said. When you are ready, you will tell me everything. We will write it down. The world is larger than we thought, it seems. We should update the hymns. Seren laughed, wiped her face, and went to kneel before the altar, letting the light soak into her. Far away, in a sanctorum of another world, a man in a red cloak paused mid-incantation, feeling a faint warmth on the edge of his awareness. He smiled, just a little, and went back to work. Back at the Gilded Griffin, breakfast had escalated. By the time Seren arrived, fully 2 tables had been pushed together. Plates littered the surface, half-eaten omelets, crumbs of bread, the remains of a mountain of fried potatoes. Half the regulars in the inn had clustered nearby, craning necks. And then, Kael was saying, gesturing with a crust of bread, he just throws himself off the roof. No wings, no potion, nothing. Just, he flung his hand out. Straight off, a collective gasp. What happened? The barmaid breathed. He didn't die, obviously, Toren grunted. He makes webs. From his wrists, swings around the city like some kind of deranged silk moth. Spider, Lyra corrected, nibbling at a pastry and taking notes on a scrap of parchment at the same time. The animal he is thematically linked to. We've been over this. Seren slipped into the seat Garrick said for her. So, she said, I leave you alone for an hour and you start telling everyone about the other universe? Kael winced. Ah, yes. About that. I tried not to. But then Toren mentioned the robot, and someone asked how big, and then spiders got involved. And it's not like they believe us, Lyra murmured. One of the nearby tavern regulars, a burly man with 3 missing teeth, was listening intently while nodding like this was all perfectly normal. Seren sighed. You're right. This is the same crowd that still insists old man Brexon turned into a dragon during the solstice blackout. He did turn into a dragon, Kael protested. I was there. Yes, well, Seren said. I'm trying to sound reasonable. Gowie cleared his throat and leaned in, resting meaty forearms on the table. All right, he said. So, you went to another world, a city of glass towers, metal wagons, men in metal suits, and boys in spider costumes. Magic that isn't quite magic. And you killed the Lich there. Yes, Lyra said simply. Garrick looked at each of them in turn, weighing their faces. A smile slowly spread across his. Good, he said. Someone needed to. He straightened and raised his voice. To the 4 suicidal maniacs who saved our hides, he called. And apparently, an entire other world while they were at it. Drinks tonight are half price for them and anyone they're sitting with. The common room exploded in cheers. Kael grinned, flushed with something that wasn't only the lingering adrenaline. Seren smiled too, but her eyes flicked briefly to Lyra's satchel, where Strange's small book lay like a buried secret. Because the thing was, the story didn't end with the Lich. It never did. They slept for most of the day. Even heroes who closed a hole between universes needed to pass out an actual bed sometimes. Toren's snoring shook the rafters. Lyra's tail twitched occasionally in some arcane dream. Seren murmured snatches of prayers and rooftop battle in her sleep. Kael woke once to the sound of a metal wagon horn in his head, realized it was just Garrick dropping a barrel, and drifted off again. Night had fallen outside when Lyra woke to a soft, insistent pulsing. At first she thought it was her own heartbeat, too loud in her ears. Then she realized it was coming from the satchel at the foot of her bed. Her eyes snapped fully open. Kael, she hissed. He mumbled into his pillow. If it's not on fire, it can wait. It might be on metaphorical fire, she said sharply. Get up. That did it. He rolled over, hair sticking up, and squinted at her. What's happening? She already had the satchel open. The little leather book Strange had given them glowed softly, as if someone had put a candle inside it. The light pulsed in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. Okay, Kael said, suddenly awake. That's new. Seren and Toren were already awake, because Seren slept with the cleric's instinctive awareness of magical weirdness, and Toren slept like a rock until something interesting happened, at which point he was instantly ready to swing an axe. They gathered around Lyra's bed as she set the book on the quilt. The glow brightened when her fingers touched its cover. Do you think it's them? Seren whispered. Dr. Strange? Either that, or we've adopted a very ambitious firefly, Kael murmured. Lyra drew a steadying breath. All right, she said. Let's see how this shared quest log works. She placed her palm flat on the cover and closed her eyes, reaching not outward, as she did with her own world's weave, but along the faint thread she'd felt during the portal home. The glow flared. In her mind's eye, pages flipped rapidly. Blank parchment filled with sigils in an unfamiliar style then reordered themselves into something more like language. A voice, echoing slightly, drifted through. If this thing is working, they should get this now. Dr. Strange sounded exactly as exasperated through a trans-dimensional book as he did in person. Go ahead, he added. Talk, before the connection destabilizes. Lyra opened her eyes. The book's cover had changed. A single symbol now adorned it. Strange's circular sigil, drawn in fine gold lines. When she lifted the cover, the pages inside were blank, except for a single slow-forming line of text written in neat, angular script. Are you there? Lyra grinned and grabbed a quill from her bedside table. The ink glowed faintly as she wrote. Yes, we're here, all in one piece, mostly. As she formed the letters, the ink sank into the page and then vanished, as if absorbed. A moment later, new words appeared beneath her line, this time in a slightly sloppier hand that somehow radiated an aura of trying to be casual, failing. Hey, it worked. Hi, It's Peter, your friendly neighborhood bookmark. Kael laughed. He's sending messages from another universe while we're in our pajamas, he said. I knew I liked him. Another line appeared, different handwriting again, sharp and precise. Dr. Strange. We have a situation. Nothing apocalyptic, yet. But it concerns your side. Lyra's smile faded. She glanced at the others. Of course it does, Toren said. We can't have a week off. What is it? Seren asked, leaning closer. Lyra dipped the quill and wrote, What kind of situation? Please specify threat level on a scale of goblin raid to reality collapse. The reply came quickly. Somewhere in between. Call it possessed artifact with daddy issues. Peter. Presumably. Strange's hand followed, more serious. When the Lich's crystal shattered, fragments of its power and the drone's core scattered. Most disintegrated, one did not. Our instruments lost track of it at the moment the portal closed to your world. We just detected a unique energy spike on your coordinates. Lyra's brow furrowed. The tower site, she murmured. Seren's heart sank. We saw a flicker before it vanished, she said softly. Like a door that almost formed. We believe a shard of the combined magic and technology hitched a ride into your reality, Strange's script continued. On its own, that's dangerous enough. But our readings suggest it's trying to phone home to both universes. That can't be good, Kael said. If it opens a door both ways at once, we could get, I don't know, half a robot lich, half a demon train, all bad. Toren grunted. We'll go check the tower site. Lyra wrote, We'll investigate. Shard is likely at the ruins of the Lich's tower. Anything we should know before we poke it with a stick? Peter's handwriting appeared again, small, quick letters like he was rushing. If it looks like a glowing blue heart, don't lick it. Hale snorted. Was that an option? Lyra smirked, despite herself. Strange added, It will resonate with your magic. It may try to use you as an anchor the way the Lich did. Do not engage directly if possible. Isolate it. I can stabilize a bridge long enough to help you contain or extract it, but not travel through. Outside is too fragile right now. Seren nodded. We don't need you to fight our battles, she murmured. Just help us aim, Lyra wrote. Understood. We'll send word when we find it. Try not to end the world before then. Likewise, came Strange's dry reply. The glow dimmed, the pages went blank again. Lyra closed the book slowly. Well, she said, looks like our after-action nap got cut short. Toren swung his legs off the bed, joints popping. I've had worse wake-up calls, he said. Once had a bugbear fall through my roof. Let's go, Seren said, already buckling on her armor. The longer we leave that shard out there, the more time it has to make friends. Kael grabbed his bow and quiver, shook the last sleep from his head, and followed them out into the cool night. The ruins of the tower were quieter now. By day, the circle of scorched earth had drawn a crowd of gawkers. By night, it was just another dark stain on the landscape, ringed by toppled stones and the charred stumps of once-bone pillars. The moon cast a pale sheen over the clearing. Crickets sang. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. Kael's boots crunched on the blackened ground. Feels like walking on burnt bread, he muttered. Seren knelt at the edge of the circle, fingers sifting through the ash. I don't see anything, she said. No crystals, no metal. Lyra narrowed her eyes, letting her vision slip into the spectrum where magic shone. There, a faint pulse beneath the ground, dead center of the circle. Not the warm gold of her world's weave, nor the sharp orange of Strange's sigils. This was blue-white, with an undercurrent of sickly green. Middle, she said, buried. Not deep. Toren stepped forward, raising his axe. Careful, Seren warned. We don't know what touching it will do. I'm not touching it, the dwarf said. I'm acquainting it with the concept of being unearthed via blunt force. He dropped the axe down in a powerful strike. The blackened earth cracked. A small chunk of fused dirt and stone split apart, revealing something nestled within. It was about the size of a clenched fist. A metal object, all smooth curves and etched grooves, still half embedded in cooled slag. Its surface pulsed with blue light from within, like a heartbeat. It did, in fact, look a lot like a glowing blue heart. Kael and Toren said together, "We are absolutely not licking that." The shard pulsed again, faster this time, as if aware of their attention. The air around it buzzed faintly. The hairs on Kael's arm stood up. Lyra swallowed. I can feel threads, she said, pulling outward, one toward our world's fabric. One, reaching beyond, searching for something familiar. The Lich, Seren said, or what's left of him, or his echo, at least. And Earth, Kael added. Their networks, their satellites. He'd only half understood Strange's explanation of those, but he'd caught the gist. Eyes in the sky that watched everything, woven into a web of invisible information. A mixed child of necromancy and technology, Lyra murmured. Lovely. Seren raised her symbol. Can we destroy it? Lyra shook her head slowly. Not by hitting it until it stops glowing, she said. It's anchored. Smash the shell. The energy might just scatter across both worlds. We need to cage it. Redirect those threads. Close the loop so it talks only to itself. Toren scratched his beard. I am not a wizard, he said, but that sounds a lot like what Strange was doing with the cracks. Can he do that here? Through the book? Maybe, Lyra said. If we give him a beacon. She pulled the book from her satchel and set it a few feet from the shard, open to a blank page. The glow from the shard reflected faintly in the parchment. Back up, she said. If this goes wrong, I don't want to scrape you off the trees. They retreated to the edge of the circle. Lyra placed her fingertips lightly on the open book and reached again. The connection formed faster this time, like a path already trodden. We found it, she wrote, beneath the tower's remains. It looks like part of your drone's core, but humming with Lich vibes. Of course it does, Strange replied almost immediately. Can you describe its behavior? Pulsing, pulling on both worlds. Very rude. Peter's handwriting popped up beneath. 010. Would not recommend giving it a Twitter account. Lyra snorted. Aloud, she said. He says, actually, never mind. I'll explain later. She drew in a breath. Doctor, can you anchor it? She wrote quickly. Bind its connections into a closed loop, no outgoing calls? Possibly, Strange replied. But I need a sympathetic link on your side. Something that can stabilize our magic in your reality. Lyra's gaze flicked to Seren. And Toren. And Kael. The medallion Roan gave you, she said to the dwarf. The one that stabilizes reality around us. And Seren's connection. And Kael's look. All three together. Kael arched an eyebrow. My luck? You bend probability, Myra said. He bends geometry. She channels light. If Strange weaves his sigils through that, we might be able to build a little cage around the shard, one that feeds on its own energy instead of ours. Toren grunted. Well, when you put it like that, he unhooked the medallion from around his neck and held it up. The swirling symbol etched into it glinted in the shard's blue glow. Seren stepped closer, holy symbol in hand. Her light flared, warm and steady. Kael, because this was his life now, stood beside them and thought very hard about things going right for once. Lyra set the book between him and the shard. Doctor, she wrote, ink glowing. We're giving you anchors. Don't break them. She set the quill down. Then she spoke, not aloud but in the inward direction where their tenuous link lived. Now, she thought. On the other side of two universes, Strange stood in the sanctum, hands already moving through familiar sigils, Wong at his side. In the projection hovering before them, they saw 4 fate lights, gold, green, and 2 shades of red-orange. Begin, Long said quietly. Strange reached, magic flowed. On the ruin site, air shimmered around the shard. Thrubs of orange-gold light flickered into existence, looping from Lyra's book to the shard, then out to the medallion, then to Seren's symbol, then to the faint radiating halo around Kael that Strange had once called luck. The shard pulsed faster, sensing contact. For a moment, the pull on Kael's chest came back, stronger. Seren's knees buckled. Toren grunted as if bearing a heavy weight. Hold, Lyra hissed through clenched teeth. She extended her own power, wrapping it around Strange's sigils, smoothing the points where their world's weave tried to reject the foreign pattern. In the sanctum, Long's brow furrowed. They resist, he murmured. Not in opposition, like oil and water. Different structures. Then we emulsify, Strange replied grimly. He twisted his fingers. The sigils changed shape, smoothing into curves more like the ones Lyra used. Back in the ruins, the light around the shard bent, folding inward. The threads that had stretched outward, seeking, curled back on themselves, looping again and again until they formed a small, dense knot of energy. The pull on Kael's chest lessened. Seren straightened. Toren's grip eased on the medallion. The shard's blue glow dimmed, then settled into a steady, slow pulse. Lyra exhaled, knees shaking. Did it? The book's page filled with neat script, as if in answer. Containment stable. The shard's connections are now self-referential, a magical feedback loop. It will burn itself out over time, drawing exclusively on its own energy. Kael blinked. So we made it talk to itself until it dies of boredom? Essentially, Lyra said tiredly. We gave it a social life comprised entirely of listening to its own monologue. Poetic justice, Toren said, eyeing the now quiet object. Seren approached cautiously. Will it hurt our world? Our people? Lyra focused, sensing the resonance. The earlier tug was mostly gone, replaced with a low, contained hum. No, she said, not now. It's quarantined. Like Avengers Tower, but in miniature. She picked up the book and wrote, We'll keep it somewhere safe until it burns out. Thank you. Again. Thank you, Strange replied. Last thing we needed was a magical AI Lich core loose in your medieval internet. Peter's handwriting popped up under it. If it had gotten smart enough, it probably would have invented social media. You're welcome. Kael frowned. He keeps saying things that sound like curses. They are, Lyra said. Strange added one last line. The bridge we just used strengthened the connection between our worlds. Carefully. Not enough to tear anything, but enough that, if needed, we might be able to do this again. Sparingly. I suggest we keep that as a last resort. Agreed, Lyra wrote. We like our reality mostly unbroken. The glow faded. The pages went blank. Silence settled over the clearing. Toren let out a breath he'd been holding. Well, he said. Now can we rest? Seren smiled, a little crooked. I think we've earned it. Kael looked down at the shard, now only faintly luminous. What do we do with it? He asked. We can't just leave it here. Someone will find it, try to sell it, lick it. You know how people are. Keep a vault, Seren said immediately. Or the guild's artifact cellar. Somewhere warded, somewhere watched. Lyra nodded. I'll write out the containment structure when we get back, she said, in case future generations find the blue glowing heart and decide it's a love token. Kael and Toren shared a look. At least this time, Kael said, we got to manage the aftermath. Toren snorted. You just wanted another chance to talk to your spider friend. I mean, I'm not mad about it, Kael conceded. They wrapped the shard carefully in layers of cloth and placed it in a reinforced pouch. The buzzing in the air had already faded to a mild tingle. As they left the ruined circle, Kael glanced back. For a heartbeat, He thought he saw a ghost of the sanctum's circular window hovering above the scorch marks, like a reflection in still water. Then it was gone. Life, insofar as it ever did for people like them, went on. Days became a rhythm of small quests again, escorting a merchant caravan through a forest rumored to hold bandits, clearing a nest of giant spiders from the apothecary's cellar, which made Kael snicker the whole time, mediating a dispute between a farmer and a minor earth elemental that had taken offense to being called a rock with opinions. Seren spent more time in the temple, sometimes alone in the side chapel, feeling out the edges of her god's newfound reach. Occasionally, during deep meditation, she saw flickers in the light, a red cloak, a circular window framing a strange city. Lyra buried herself in study. She drafted pages of notes, comparing their spell structures with strangest sigils, experimenting cautiously with small cantrips that borrowed a twist here and there from what she'd seen in the sanctum. "Don't break the world," Kael reminded her one afternoon as she sat surrounded by scrolls. "If I do," she replied, "you get to say I told you so for whichever 5 seconds we have left." Toren took his ruined shield to the smith and spent 3 days at the forge, helping craft its replacement. The new one bore both his old rune and a second symbol etched in the corner, Wrong's medallion pattern, simplified. "Belt and suspenders," he said, when Kael asked. "If this universe starts wobbling, I want something sturdy to hide behind." And the book sat in Lyra's satchel, quiet, for a while. It was about a month later, on a night so clear the stars looked close enough to touch, that the book buzzed again. This time, it was gentle, not urgent, not pulsing like a wounded heart, just tapping, like a friend at a window. They were sitting at their usual table at the Griffin, finishing a late supper, and arguing about whether or not the mayor's new statue resembled a squash toad. Garrick was cleaning mugs. A bard in the corner sang a ballad about a hero who definitely was not Kael but had suspiciously similar hair. Lyra felt the buzz, fished out the book, and laid it on the table. It glowed softly when she opened it. Lines of text formed, neat and calm. Status check. No crises. Just saying hello. Kael blinked. "We get multiversal check-ins now." Seren smiled warmly. "That seems right." Peter's hand. "We fought a guy in a scorpion suit today. 310, very stabby, not a fan." "How's your side of the dungeon?" Lyra glanced at the others, then wrote, "We fought a goat that wouldn't stop eating spell books. 210, surprisingly resistant to fire, also not a fan." A pause. Then, "This friendship is very weird," Peter wrote. "I like it." Stranger's tidy hand added, "No major disturbances on the multiversal front. The shard signature is fully decayed. Your world's fabric is stable. Ours is as stable as it ever gets." Seren nodded, as if he could see her. Lyra wrote, "Good. Let's keep it that way." She hesitated and added, "If things ever go wrong again, on either side, we'll call," Strange replied. "Carefully. You do the same." There was a pause. Then one final line appeared, written in a hand that somehow managed to be amused and earnest at once. "Earth says, thanks." Lyra's throat tightened. She pushed the book toward the center of the table. "Want to write something?" she asked Kael. He thought for a moment, then took the quill. Kael wasn't one for big speeches. He'd sooner shoot an arrow through his own foot than deliver an epic monologue. So he kept it simple. "So does Grey Harbor." He hesitated, then added a second line. "Roll high, wherever you are." Toren read it and snorted. "Nerd," he said affectionately. Seren laughed. "Appropriate," she said, "given our lives are determined by dice half the time." Lyra closed the book. The glow faded. The end went on humming around them. Derek yelled at someone for trying to climb on the bar. The bard's song shifted into a lively jig. Someone rolled actual dice in a corner game. Groans and cheers following. Kael leaned back, chair balanced on 2 legs, looking both up at the wooden ceiling and somehow beyond it. You know, he said, if you told me a year ago we'd be pen pals with a spider-themed hero from another universe, I would have accused you of spiking my ale. If I told you a year ago that we'd fight a Lich in a bone tower and then fight him again in a glass one, you wouldn't ask, do we get paid twice? Seren said. Kael considered. Still a valid question. Toren raised his mug. To portals that stay shut unless we open them on purpose, he said. To gods who shine in more than one sky, Seren added. To wizards who don't destroy reality when they experiment, Lyra said. They all looked at her. She rolled her eyes. Fine. To wizards who try not to destroy reality when they experiment. Kael lifted his mug last. To us, he said. Earth's accidental adventurers. Grey Harbor's multi-serval weirdos. And to all the heroes on all the worlds who don't get tavern discounts when they're done. They clinked mugs. The sound rang warm and bright. Outside, the night wrapped the city in its familiar embrace. Above, the stars wheeled in their slow, ancient patterns. Somewhere, in another universe, under a different sky, a man in a spider suit sat on the edge of a skyscraper, looking up at his own stars, feeling a faint, comfortable buzz from a little book in Dr. Strange's sanctum. He smiled behind his mask. Roll high. You murmured. Yeah, you two guys. He swung off into the night. Back in Grey Harbor, Kael finally let his chair drop onto all four legs. Tomorrow, he said, we take a small job. Rats in a cellar. Lost your head. Anything without cracks in reality, Toren snorted. You say that like we get to choose, Seren grinned. We'll go where we're needed. We always do. Lyra flicked her tail, eyes dancing. And if where we're needed happens to be across the stars again, she said, at least this time, we'll know where we're landing. They laughed, the sound blending with the tavern's music, the creak of the griffin's sign, the heartbeat of a world that had no idea how close it had come to being stitched to another. For now, they were home. For now, that was enough. But somewhere deep in the ruins of the tower, in the temple, in the sanctum, in the little book, threads remained. Not dangerous, not tugging, but present. Quiet. Waiting. Adventurers, after all, never really retired. They just waited for the next quest. And sometimes that quest started with a simple, glowing line on a blank page. Are you there?